You threw me off there a little bit, Craig.
With the subject title.
Yeah, I can't have people going through my emails and being like, "Why is he
That's
getting a bunch of emails about boys?" Welcome to the Prestige-ish Media Podcast. Today we're going to be covering The Boys, Season 5, Episode 7, The Frenchman, the Female, and the Man Called Mother's Milk. It's the penultimate episode that I will be your host for this podcast. My name is Dan McNair. With me is somebody who is not Hitler on the outside, but he is Fosse on the inside. It's Craig Lake. Craig, good evening to you.
I had to Google Fosse. The closest I can get is Fozzie Bear, but apparently it's some sort of choreographer. Chicago was about the biggest thing that jumped out. Do you have any Fosse knowledge?
It's more of a gay trope.
Okay.
Bob would know.
Like just say Liberace or something, but less
Along those
mainstream.
lines,
Because I could even dalliance with an Andrew Lloyd Webber joke or something, but I had nothing for Fozzie. Choreography is not my bag, baby.
there's a part in the bird cage where they're doing dance moves and they're like naming different musical directors, and it's Fosse.
Got it, got it. Yeah, I have actually never seen Birdcage. Your boy Nathan Lane.
Yeah, it's right up your alley. So, what are your initial thoughts and a rating on this episode?
I think it's another very strong episode. I kind of want to give it 2 ratings. I really do think some of the just Kripke's got to hit his bingo card. That makes me want to take it down half a notch, half a point, just for just it's just so ham-fisted. But I'm going to give it an 8 overall. I think it was a very good episode.
Okay, I feel the same but different. I gave it an 8.4, and I think just in terms of where we are and what we're getting, whereas we were just wallowing in nowhere land for a couple seasons, it didn't take us right up to the edge of the finish line, but they are doing some neat things. Where I push back is maybe not the place where you push back, but in a lot of ways, this episode felt like a greatest hits album. They kept doing these callbacks to things from previously in the season. And it made me think of this episode in a lot of ways. And I'll argue the case here as we go through it. But in 80s sitcoms, I don't know how many of them you watched, but there was this thing they would do in 80s sitcoms where you would be ready for an all new episode of Cheers or Growing Pains or something like that. And they would just sit around and say, "Remember the time?" And they would just make an entire 30-minute episode out of clips from all their other episodes. And I felt that a lot in this one, whether it's the Posh Spice bit, the Starlight quote, the Billy Joel songs, the Mother's Milk story. It feels like they're just reminding us of all the other seasons here. And that felt a bit flat instead of doing something new and fresh, which I feel like they did with a couple things this season, be it the old VOT shows in the old folks home last episode or some of those types of things. But it just felt like we were getting rehashed quotes and jokes a lot. And so
I
that
think that
soured it for me, kept it from being better.
Yeah, and for me, that was actually some of the better stuff I thought it did. I think that cloud scene was a callback an episode ago, and then these callbacks, and for 2 different reasons. One, they've lost that way a bit. And then secondly, they've made these characters so unlikable that it's, oh yeah, that is something that was funny about Butcher. And there was a Spice Girls reference. I didn't really totally remember what it was, but I knew that was a callback. We got the Huey and the Billy Joel stuff, which I thought was a positive. So yeah, so it just played different for
Butcher and the
both.
topless steakhouse, like
Yeah, it played different for both of us, which I think is fine. I think the good news is we both liked the episode. For me, it was like the laundry list. I still continually calling Homelander a Nazi when he infamously did not connect with a Nazi. Yeah, he banged her mouth and kept her on ice, but he infamously wouldn't go along with her plan. And now his plan is her plan. And then everything that has to be tied into that. We got fucking anchor babies this episode. We had to do a crown of thorns exchange. I just, my point is, it's so unnecessary at this point. They've more than made every political point they could ever make in the history of this show. And so I just didn't, it's not even serving the plot at this point. It's just, and I think this has happened the last several seasons. It's turned a lot of people off, and I can luckily separate the things. And so I still give the episode a high range, but it's once again, we're in the penultimate episode. Do we have to take every pot shot we can get our hands on our way to the finish line? I just don't think it's necessary. But other than that, like I said, for me, it humanized the characters that we've have almost become dehumanized by some of the things we've talked about, which is their poor behavior of the boys has gotten so bad. It's like, who do you even root for at a point? That I think reminding us of what emotionally connected us to those characters at some point in the show, for me, was a positive.
All right, let's start to get into it here. It opens up with the Oh Father musical number. We got some twerking angels. This scene reminded me of The Gong Show, which was definitely before your time. But are you familiar with the premise of The Gong Show?
Yeah, I was very much a game show kid, and so I would whenever I could catch reruns if I was home from school or whatever it was. Gong Show was pretty hit or miss even in reruns until the Game Show Network. And by then I was into girls and stuff. But yeah, I'm familiar with it. I think it's a really cool concept. I would have loved it if I was like in the Gong Show heyday when I was in my game show heyday. For me, I was just glad to see a little eye candy. But Oh Father, for me, is just brutal. And I know the whole point is it's ridiculous, but the whole thing is just ridiculous. And once again, we're in the sound studio, church, funeral parlor. And
Political Convention Center.
I
Every
didn't
time I
know.
see him, I just want to say, "Oh, Father." I think that's the correct way to pronunciate his name. So, how long would this? So, who would have gonged this act sooner, you or me?
Probably you, because I would have watched the girls long
Yeah,
enough.
that's exactly. You filled in the Mad Lib perfectly there.
But when I would have hit the gong is I didn't understand the Homelander thing. Like when they dropped him from the wires that they were practicing, so they drop him from the real wires and later. And then we did get the joke later where they're like, remove the wires from the VFX and the instructions, which I'm sure is more of an inside industry thing because we don't see those things. But yeah, the cardboard thing for me, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? But the girls distracted me long enough.
Okay. So we move from there to the Oval Office. Homelander's there with his feet on the desk. He wants to ban nut milk. He says it's the greatest deception that the devil ever told. You got any affinity for almond milk?
I only can do so much dairy, or I only feel like doing so much dairy. So when I add extra protein into my day, like sometimes I'll do one almond milk one just so I'm not so dairy heavy. But I prefer real milk. But yeah, there were like a lot of things crammed into this. Aside from the thorns, you got the executive orders and just a lot of different things in this small.
Dissolve Congress
Yeah,
and
all these things that had to just be jammed in. And was there ever a moment you we didn't think the president was probably getting killed here? So in my mind, we could have just gotten to the real point, which is killing the president and installing Ashley because the president wasn't cooperating. But what was aside from milk, what all was happening? Like what was his agenda here? There was babies should get real milk, then ban nut milk, dissolve Congress. What else was going on?
yeah, make breastfeeding mandatory.
Yeah.
That was a thing.
I might
Um,
vote for this platform.
of course you would. Of course you would.
All right.
So moving on from that, we finally get a Gen V cameo in the too little too late category. Jordan and Marie show up and they still want to fight, but Starlight is just gassed out. They give him the information that, oh, father's up to something big at Vought Studios. And basically, Starlight's, okay, that's it. I'm pulling the plug on everything. And we get a call back to early, young, bright eyed Starlight when Marie throws the "since when did hopeful and naive mean the same thing" line. So for you, this was a positive. For me, it just kind of resonated enough to me. It was
Reminding
bullshit.
me of Starlight's that she actually had that kind of video thing and remembering because I remember she was a new member, but I forget some of that process. So that was okay. But the Gen V cameos just felt really flat and one dimensional. I think when we saw Juan Carlos Esposito earlier in the season, that one fit a little better overall into the narrative. He's also been in this show before, aside from being in
Hmm.
the other show, but that one felt more lively than this, where this just fell flat. Did it feel flat for you other than what you already mentioned?
It was a net neutral. I've been waiting for more Gen V input. I thought with as closely tethered together as the two shows have been, it seemed as we've gone through the season, it seems like it's now just divorcing itself from Gen V. That's not canon anymore and focusing just on Vought Rising. We're concerned with the future, not the past.
I think because they can Gen V, it feels like he made changes to this season. Because if you remember the finale of last season, we got Sam and is Kate the blonde girl or who's
Hmm.
and to me, it feels like because he's mentioned that these characters can appear in other shows later. So it seems like because he's not getting his season three, he might be. This is just what it feels like to me. Whatever direction he was going to go, that some of it got retconned so he could put these characters on ice for another show to be determined later. That's what it felt like, with the additional expectation that he'd already said. Just because Gen V's canceled doesn't mean I can't use the characters again. So it's okay. I That's what it feels like.
Yeah. And we'll see where it goes. We go back to the school in Erie. And it took me a little while just to figure out what their end game plan is here. So basically, you tell me if I got this right. They're experimenting on Kamiko with uranium because she's got a healing power to try and make her into the next Soldier Boy so that she can then go use Soldier Boy powers on Homelander. Do I kind of have that straight? Because they didn't draw a picture for me.
One thing I had a question of is the geography lord. Where did they get all this uranium? Was it from Uranus or somewhere else?
Ah,
Secondly,
yes.
no, I think you're right in that I think I generally understand that, but it doesn't seem super sensible to me. But it's like I assume that's what's happening, but it doesn't totally make sense to me. We can get to the soldier boy of it this episode. Can they die, or but they can be killed, but they not be killed? I just don't really understand. And we're to assume that the V1 worked on Homelander the way they've played this, but they could just be playing that a little dumb so we forget about it by the next episode. So I'm just accepting that there is a premise here, but I do not fully understand the premise either.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny to me in that like all of the boys' strategies are Hail Marys. It's always a 1% possibility. But through the entire scope of this episode, they're like, oh, you're trying to do that on Kamiko? That's ridiculously crazy. Why would you do something so risky? There's no way that's going to work. And it seems like that's every boy's strategy, every episode, every season. And now we're supposed to think this is the one they couldn't possibly pull off after all the other ones that they've somehow fumbled the football into the end zone and fallen on it.
Yeah, the Russian dildo gauntlet seemed maybe even tougher than this was. But yeah, I it was hard to believe, but it was fine for what it was. It served a purpose.
So everybody's getting down and talking about just how this is a terrible plan. It couldn't work. And this is where Butcher gives another Spice Girls speech, just like he did in season one. But that seemed to work for you. Was that something you enjoyed?
Yeah, I liked it. It seemed like it worked on the boys too in general as much as anything does. It was a mixed reaction, but for as much as they've hated Butcher for 2 seasons now, they seem more connected this episode than they have in a while. So, yeah, once again, for me I was okay with them playing the greatest hits, but I also understand you wanting new stuff. I think both things can be true.
Even if it wasn't a Spice Girls thing, if it was like a Blackpink or some K-pop band or something.
Yeah, I'm obviously a Spice Girls homer, so it's going to play differently for me. And it's one for the good guys. I can't always do the Billy Joel and the NXS and the yacht rock and the sleaze rock. Give me some Spice Girls once in a while. Maybe even some Britney Spears. Who knows?
They're playing your song. Back at Vought Tower, Homelander's basically disbanding the Seven. He does kind of do the insider joke of we haven't really been seven for a while. But now Black Noir's dead, Deep's apologetic, and Homelander basically tells him, "You are forgiven, my son. Just get out of my face." That sends us on maybe a different deep side quest that was okay, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Does it feel final with the seven just splitting apart here at this point? We've had Firecracker die, Sage defected, Black Noir's dead. Other than Soldier Boy in the Deep, there's really nobody else left anyway, right?
Since they added Sister Sage and Firecracker last season, and I think Black Panther was supposed to be dead, but we got the new one last
Black
season, I
Noir.
believe. Yeah, that one too. But yeah, so it felt like it was still very important last season, but it felt the whole season like they had already dismissed it. They should have done
Yeah.
this the first episode or second. This should have
Yeah,
happened
this is
early.
just a formality at this point.
Yeah, but with that said, what I find very odd is earlier in the season, like when he kills A Train, him being like, why do people fear me? Why this? Why that? Once again, it's making it look like he wants support of others, which does lead into the Soldier Boy stuff, but he really more words it about like it seems like the seven and his friends, and if this is the person most being loyal to him, if that never happened earlier in the season, this would make more sense if he just killed A Train and didn't lament it. But he lamented it, and then multiple people that have tried to be close to him, Firecracker included, now the D piece, which I get we're not supposed to like him, but it should make some sense. And for me, there's some things there narratively that we've talked about before where it's Homelander and his EBITDA thing is a big joke, but the functional physical vitality of Vought was very important at one point, where at this point it's not even a real thing.
Yeah, remember
But
all that stuff that was important? Ah, forget the
but but
last six
but
seasons.
even in the EBITDA episode and all the stress from that, 2 episodes later, it was like gone. And so my whole point is this was a thread this season that I think they've tied together very poorly. I think this could have been A Train dies episode 1. They do the deep shit and the other guy episode 2. By the end of episode 2 and 3, this is disbanded. And you kind of skip through the other stuff, but I don't know. I just think this was another writer's room failure. The other stuff after that we'll get to is fine, but this
They
itself was
got
just,
the instead of the cart ahead of the horse, they got the fish fry ahead of the fish.
and they beat the fish fry like a dead horse.
Okay, so we get to Vought Studios. We see the filming of a really popular show, American Eagle, which it's definitely doing some political talking points, but that's because they can't get around the Taylor Sheridan AI. Basically, they start to see Oh Father, and there's all these psychics walking around. This is just when we first arrive there. We're not to the special screening yet, but just any initial takes, they're not even really wearing disguises. It's just four of the boys walking around a movie set, basically.
Was the blonde one that played Starlight, and I don't know what point she comes out, but is that the cat lady that we see later, or are those different actresses?
I think they're different because I think fake Starlight is prettier.
I'm pro either one of them, but I'm assuming the American Eagle could be a Sydney Sweeney foreplay as well. She has good genes. I don't know, but I didn't. Was this a show before? And one of my big beefs is the characters that are so similar. There's like the worm guy and the writer on the toilet they killed, and then some of their powers are the same. There's 80 people with their balls hanging out. We already killed one bald person. I'm supposed to know that bald person was different from this bald person that both does shit with their brain. Like, I don't, they need to differentiate some of these guys a little better.
You really only have 12 different types of superheroes, I suppose. So they
Well,
start
it's
to
just
look the
like
same after a while.
there's Mesmer, there's the one from the desert, which I don't think it's was this one, the one or from the woods with Soldier Boy that took over Huey's mind or whoever that was. Maybe that was this guy. But and then I get
Oh, yeah.
and then there's another fake Mesmer, and then there's two versions of a one trick pony. And then yeah, I'm just saying
Well, I think.
this guy
I,
and the other girl they killed in the same season could have fooled me on either of them. And I get that psychokinetic powers and psychic powers are different, but they're both using their bald ass head.
and they
You
always
know,
have to be bald.
throw them together and you get Professor X. But yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I think this American Eagle show was brand new. It was just them trying to spoof the Yellowstone franchise with soups. I do think that the guy writing this show was the same guy at the beginning of the season, the worm that got him into the camp. And I do think he was the same guy that was doing the marketing
I
lightnings.
Yeah, but I will say if you took him and the guy that had the eel came up his butt, and I didn't see them both this season, and a year from now you asked me who is who, would have been tough for me to know before this season. They've jammed this worm guy down our throat enough this season that I finally get it, but I would have thought he was the same guy.
Between you jamming worms down your throat and taking eels up the ass, like our rating for this show just got very mature. But I'm a Bork fan. I stand by Bork. I'm not gonna get Bork confused with Bork and Mindy. So
Orphic
moving on,
strangers.
we check in with Sister Sage. She's finally back to lobotomizing herself, and she's actually got one of the Starlighter dildos. So that's
True.
another greatest hit call out.
God,
Um,
she was soaking that thing. Jeez and crackers.
you were probably more in for the play-by-play, but with your watches this week, I can definitely detect a theme.
Yeah, this is not my bag, baby, for
Give
multiple
him Sydney
reasons.
Sweeney, he cries.
It takes a dark turn with her. It was always dark, but more, this would seem more, I don't know, malicious or aggressive. She's obviously hitting rock bottom here, but yeah, this isn't fun for me to watch.
What I think there could be an interesting philosophical debate here. This isn't really the show, but she's supposedly the smartest woman alive. People are predictable, and that's how she's made a lot of her success. But here, the big wild card is love. And it screwed her over with the Godolkin thing. And then this soldier boy Homelander turn threw her even further. And just from a character standpoint, somebody that's got everything figured out but can't figure out love because that's the unpredictable thing. And then she gets sucked into a Love Island marathon. I thought there might have been like a more interesting idea there to unravel, but this is not the show for it. But there could be an interesting debate there, like logic versus love. But she is definitely the enemy of love. Walking around the Vought studios, Butcher and Huey start to see the psychics. We had mentioned last episode how we thought that was going to play into something, so it gets served up to us here. And all of a sudden, this is when Butcher asks Huey top 10 Billy Joel songs. He goes into a huge deep dive, basically just to try and keep this psychic with the two-seater sweatshirt, whose name is Synapse, not to be confused with Psyops, Cyclops, or Cirrhosis. And basically, they wind up getting captured inside the studio. Anything that I'm missing or you want to elaborate on there?
This was like this part of this was maybe one of the cheesier callbacks was like they just show up with like three of them have a hat and Butcher's just Butcher and it's at the most scariest of all times and they're just gonna it was believable when Homelander barely knew who they were in season 2 that something like this might could happen, but at this point it's there's no way this is flying under the radar. So it was just like get us to the point.
Yeah, there's a lot of suspending of belief after they just caught the legend on a videotape at the villages in the last episode. And they don't even know what they're going for here. They just know Oh Father's up to something. So they're going to take four of their key members just to find out what's going on.
When they were already trying to plant the virus there, wasn't it there? Or is that someplace else and wouldn't have been for this? And Oh Father already saw him. So it's like they're just coming back again, but with hats. I don't know what the hell's going on.
If I were to try and figure it out, I would say that the church, even though it's probably the same actual set they use in real life to film it, is in universe a different location from the studios where they're doing this control testing and shooting all of their other crap. But that's just me trying to sort two things out.
I'll believe it, but they never show where Homelander was supposed to be for the other thing, I don't think, that we never got. I get they didn't
Yeah.
plan it, but we didn't see it not work or what. I don't know what the hell
Well, and I
happened.
think once Huey made the threat, they had to scrap that plan because there's no hiding the hand sanitizer at the church at that point.
Yeah, just if I'm a writer narratively, I would have started out the next episode where Homelander's giving a speech from that pulpit and then goes into the president's office and tells him he's a piece of shit or something. I would have just tied some thread together, but I get it. I'll accept it. I didn't understand.
That's what's great about lazy writing is we get to write it for them. It's like Metallica going, we want the fans to tell us what the songs are about. You wrote it, dipshit. You do the work.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Then we get back to the deep. He's just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time, drinking some beers. He chucks one in the water, and the hammerhead shark didn't grab the name on it. Norman, Mandy, Malcolm, I don't know. Starts chatting it up with him. And we learn that the deep can't set foot in the water because now he's pissed off all the fish because of the Great Pipeline debacle. Let's just cover all the deep stuff here. But I did find it funny in the next scene with the deep as the guy is drowning out in this bay and all the people see the deep there and you're like, you're the Lord of the Seven Seas. Go save him. But he's scared. He's no, just turn your side to the shore and anybody got a life preserver? And then once they start filming him on their phones, he kind of ducks down and tries to hide. Comical at least. I give it chops for that.
Yeah, I like the shark part better than that. The very end of that, where he's just creeping away, is maybe the funniest of that for me. Did you pick up who did the shark cameo?
No.
I actually thought it sounded like this person, and just looking it up, it was, I think it was Samuel L. Jackson. So,
Ah.
pretty good cameo there. Yeah, I thought that whole premise is interesting. It would have, once again, I think this could have been an interesting season 4 premise to explore with the deep versus him fucking an octopus, and that could have been season 3. But this is a pretty good angle where he can't enter the area and he feels bad. This is just an interesting angle, but it's too little too late maybe, but
Yeah,
you
and then
know.
he is calling around for other assignments to Las Vegas and Phoenix, and his agent or whoever is like, "But you're the deep, you need water," but he knows he can't go in water, so more hilarity around the rapist. It's good times.
I
So we get back to this focus group and it's diehard Homelander fans. And so Starlight's a little taken aback with just the backlash that they have at her, even though she knows it exists. These are like the super of the super fans that are gonna see what they want to roll out as far as this Homelander movement. And assisting in it is your old pal Dogknott and the kitty girl from Teenage Kicks, whose name appears to be Kate Dunlap,
okay, I'll accept
which
the premise.
That's not to be confused with Kate and Gen V, but they're two Kates.
Or Kitty on Euphoria who likes to dance.
Yeah, yeah. Join us for our Euphoria coverage. So we get this Homelander and Jesus video, which I know you were a big fan of. I thought this was the unreleased Craig Lake eighth grade class president video. Is
Yeah,
that possible?
it may have been. There should have been somebody to maybe just say, once again, I don't know what we're getting out of Homelander calling himself God versus just figuratively taking over the world. And I'm sure somebody thought it was creative, but there's just points like it's comical in the most fucked up ways. It's funny, but is it tasteful? Is it respectful? Is it a step too far? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And that's just ultimately where I go, both specifically in this scene and this just concept of him being God, the way they're doing it. I'm not saying it couldn't be done in a different way, but the way they've chosen to do it, which was this vision of fucking Elizabeth Shue driving this whole thing, which there's no explanation for why that vision even happened. And I do think we got a really great line for Soldier Boy. That's probably the best thing that's came out of this whole thing is the Soldier Boy one-liner. But once again, it feels like it was a step too far, or if nothing else, just not tasteful for what you get out of it. And I still just don't understand the whole season, what this is accomplishing that couldn't be accomplished in a different way. How did it grab you by the haunches?
So I look at it differently than you, and you definitely probably have more experience points in religion than I do. I know enough to be dangerous, but I chose to watch this scene as this is the Wayans brothers Amazon Prime production of Left Behind. And so if this, instead of calling him Homelander, they call him Carpathian, definitely they're trying to sell him up to be like an Antichrist type figure. And there may be somebody with enough religious background that is presenting. A lot of the whole Left Behind series was based on a lot of similar things to what we're seeing here. And
Man, I read the books and very different experience as a
well,
kid. I never even saw the Antichrist angle, is what I would say. And so if I
oh,
could
geez, it's obvious to me.
if I could have seen that and felt that, but what does it say that with me being who I am, that didn't even register with me at all? I'm not a total fucking idiot. Like, yeah, I didn't process it through that lens, which to me says if they would have spelled it out a little differently, I could have experienced this differently. And it could just be they're so tied up at taking pot shots at all of these establishment things that it's overriding the narrative. And that's exactly my argument. It's the shock value. It's just saying the things that they say are more valuable than telling a good story sometimes. And the show is at its best when it's telling a good narrative story. And I think sometimes the show is at its worst when it's more focused on building another show, or when it gets so in its own bullshit that it misses the point sometimes. But continue.
Well, that's fair, and I'll try and bring it around to one of Homelander's Oval Office things. Obviously, there's a lot of political stuff in the show, and I know that's affected a lot of viewers' view of the writer's room and the narratives, and a lot of religious stuff in modern day arguments is tied into that. I tend to separate the two things, just like Homelander doesn't want separation of church and state anymore. In my viewing of the different satire, I try to separate the two things and make it not a red-blue political thing. But some people like Dogknott, some like Kitty. So that's what we come down
You're a Dogknott guy. I get it. No, I
to.
once again I've said before, my complaint isn't necessarily the content, it's the quality of the content or the way it's being delivered. And maybe a balanced way of delivering the content would is often funnier when you're because your mind is more open, but it just seems so one track that they're missing things. That's just my take on it.
And it might be harder to see this as an antichrist thing given the slant with all the other things. So I don't know. Fair enough. Let's get to Soldier Boy, who just wants to snort and fuck his way through the Banana Republics. And I don't think he means that defunct store in the mall. He has a confrontation with Homelander. I don't have the exact line. Maybe you do. I did appreciate the one that you referenced a moment ago.
It
Go
was
ahead and give it to
some
me.
it was some version of you're not a god if seeing a big titted woman makes you god, then I've been a god 8 times or something like that. That's not the exact quote, but that was the gist of it. And I thought that was pretty good. And I
Yeah,
do
I think
think
he uses the term milkers. We might have to go back to your top jugs references from our It Welcome to Dairy.
and we did get a like from Milker 247 this Milkman 247 or Milker 247 this week
That was in
Instagram.
our Sydney Sweeney coverage, obviously, but
I also want to say, and I don't know what order they filmed him in, but it feels like they filmed him pretty chronologically because I do feel like this Soldier Boy is closer to the Soldier Boy that I remember. I felt like earlier in the season he was over delivering lines. I did see some commentary on that on X as well earlier in the season, but I felt this episode was a good Soldier Boy episode.
so help me out. Homelander puts him in a chokehold, and I don't think it wasn't a quality kill. Later, Soldier Boy is back in his little coma cocoon, and there is the question, can he even be killed? But is that your read? Homelander just put him on ice to be an ornament in his bedroom?
I full disclosure, he is on my Deadpool board, and I did not believe they killed him because they never kill him. He was how many times has he been killed in this show? Is he ever gonna die? And I get he's supposed to be immortal in one way, but I do feel like this is Kripke just doesn't want to kill one of his supernatural characters because he is already going to be in the prequel, so really he could die. I don't get it. I feel like for this to have happened this way, just for him to be on ice again, is like we've been there before for sure.
Okay.
And it's not just because I have him on the Deadpool, but that does contribute. But how did you feel about it? Pulling a death away,
It seemed purposefully vague. They want you to wonder what's going on with
but not,
him.
but like they show him in the cryo chamber the same episode. Like,
Yeah.
why not just trick him into the cryo chamber and lock him in or something? I get it stupid, but like the choke out scene to that, it just seems a little weird for a show that's pulled his death 3 or 4 times already.
So I'm gonna say he's not dead. He still has brain activity.
I will show you my board, but it says Soldier Boy question mark. But
Fair
I would
enough.
generally agree with you.
So Sage is deep into Love Island when Frenchie is trying to get help, like his math checked on this critical Kimiko uranium formula. You got, have we discussed Love Island? I know it's probably not your type of show.
Yeah, it's not something I've watched before. I think you prefer Nada Yada Island or whatever that one is. But
Yeah, I do like that one. Too Hot to Handle can be good. Love Island, I know some of the people from it, but my daughters are definitely a lot more into it than I am.
okay, fair
Um,
enough.
as well as Sister Sage. We get this mother's milk origin story about how he got his name. It fell flat to me. There is a lot about mother's milk's backstory that I do enjoy, but this, I don't know, how did you feel about it?
So I am not generally a Mother's Milk fan. The character has not worked for me more than it's worked. And the last 3 seasons, I felt it's worked the least. So I actually, it was on the right side of apathy for me that I gave it points, but I think it's fair to like, I I don't know that we needed this as the origin to his name. What was it that he was going to give a squirrel his nut milk or his tit milk? And that's
Pigeon, yeah.
but yeah, so I don't know, but if you're gonna have a character like Mother's Milk, at some point fucking explain it. I don't know. I didn't did you I
It
didn't
didn't
see I didn't see that coming. Did you?
I didn't, and I didn't see it as necessary either. Meanwhile, they're up like in the vents and ducts, and down below we've got cats and dogs sniffing each other's chalupa wraps or Little Caesars or whatever they were having for lunch. I know that you like Kitty Dunlap. I know you don't like Dogknott. I didn't need any of this, but what's the boys without some butt sniffing?
Yeah, not a big fan of the butt sniffing. We could debate Little Caesars. Where do you fall on Little Caesars?
It's definitely below Pizza Hut. I would take it ahead of Domino's or Papa John's.
Wow. Yeah, definitely it's on the lower of lowest rings, but it's like a guilty pleasure, like you're eating some pretzel cheese bullshit thing that's terrible, but you think it's going to be good, and then you hang your head in shame immediately after.
Crazy bread is good for 3 or 4 seconds and then filled with immediate regret.
Yeah, I know that they mix the sauce in a trash can and various things. I did think it was interesting that we got a rat and a hantavirus thing in the same week. And I didn't know if they had planted the rats to carry the virus. I was like, oh, maybe they really did have a plan that might have worked, but no, they did not. The other thing that we would be mused not to mention was that I had Dogknott on my death board. So seeing him appear was a bet.
You're
Like
like,
I
maybe
had,
I can get one more here.
yeah, because he hadn't been back all season, and so it was getting a little worrying. And the fact that he showed up, I felt pretty good that we were gonna get a death on the board.
That's kind of how I felt when the sister in Stranger Things came back half the
Yeah,
season that we all hated.
yeah,
I can appreciate that feeling. So Huey and Butcher are handcuffed in a waiting room, and we get our call back to the Juicy Rack, the place where the waitresses bring out their knackers while they serve you a ribeye. So that's a callback to season 4. And it reminded me of something. There's so much of my boy's memory that I've Z'd through. Butcher was going to die in season 4. He had the cancer. He was on death's door the whole season.
yeah. I've
Um,
generally forgotten that part. But was he originally supposed to go there with his brother?
yeah, Lenny.
That's what I took from it. Was like that was probably the place he was supposed to go with his brother or something.
And I don't see, it feels like there's just a lot of loose ends to this show. Like, where is the dad and the Thames? Did that even really happen? Is nothing
Well, I
gonna
mean, I don't
from
see him
it?
again. He killed him. I would take it at face value if he doesn't come back.
Yeah, it just seems like there's some loose threads hanging out there that they either just didn't do a good job sewing up, or that they've got this is gonna be like a 3 hour Stranger Things finale or something like that if they have
Dan,
to touch every
accusing this
base.
show of cutting corners or not fulfilling a plot line seems very out of character for this show. I just want to say.
So we get the return of Joe Kessler. So Synapse basically walks back in and changes into the alter ego that was Butcher's cancer, that he thought was his friend helping him through the whole last season. Again, it's one of those greatest hits lines. It seems like they're just picking all sorts of things from the past of the show to try and insert here. He's not a terrible actor. He is another supernatural guy, so you got to take that into consideration. But did you have any input on seeing this Kessler guy again? Did you even remember him? Because I know a lot of season 4 was forgettable.
Yeah, so I remembered that we saw him, but I did not remember that he was the cancer actor. I did remember him as someone from his past. And so I thought it was valid as he's potentially leading all these people to his death to, and the way I wasn't a big fan of the vision he had of this guy, but I was more of a fan of the fact that this entity can enter your brain and recreate a character based off that. So that to me felt better. And I felt like just from this, I more understand what that story was and whatever the hell they did last season with him. And generally, this guy was also on The Walking Dead, right?
Yeah.
I think he might have been Bruce Wayne in the Snyder version. So he's an actor of enough chops that I don't mind seeing him on screen. So I think this played as well as it could have for what it was, and it played better than it did last season for me, certainly.
Yeah, that is a good point. So basically, all these people that are undergoing the screening get locked in. Homelander isn't happy with the results, that these people aren't feeling it in their hearts, and basically it becomes a gas chamber. Oh, Father locks them all in there. Dogknott and Kitty Girl are going to slaughter them all. And it's actually Starlight and Mother's Milk to the rescue, at least for most of them. So a fight ensues. It's basically Starlight versus Dogknott. Starlight isn't that great a fighter, it seems like. She's taking more hits than you would expect somebody to be in the seven to do. But eventually she subdues Dogknott. Mother's Milk, who does not have powers, is fighting bullets, firing them away at Kate Dunlap. He eventually distracts her with a rat, which she goes nuts on. And then he stabs her with some sort of tranquilizer that I missed if they referenced that was a weapon that he had available to him at any point. Just all of a sudden it appears.
It did seem
So
like he killed her with it though, right? It seemed
I
like they went into her kidney or bladder or an organ, or I didn't know, and I didn't know that if they were tranks or EpiPens or something weird that would overload her. But
whatever it is, I could use it on my cat now that's
well,
freaking
we
out.
don't have to debate her for the death pool, but we do accept Dogknott is dead, correct?
I have not had that confirmed. He got thrown into a wall.
I have him as dead until proved otherwise, but I will accept that you have him in a debated category.
If we don't see him again, he's dead.
Got it. I agree
So
with that. So we'll see.
yeah, another question mark for Craig. So she goes Ozzy Osbourne on the rat. Butcher and Huey get the drop on Synapse. Somehow Huey knows the whole backstory of this guy, distracts him, talks to him about his childhood, and is able to use the memories back at him. So,
I'm thinking that possibly when he was on that task force that was supposed to find the soups, was that what Victoria Newman was doing way back when he worked for her in her political office? I'm thinking that's where he had access to the files and that's where it came from. And once again, they didn't directly bring it up, but that is where some of these ambiance reminders of things that happened earlier did help me jog my brain there because I'm seeing all these other things. I'm like, oh, this ties to this ties to this. So I'm like, this has got to be something else that ties together. Now that you mention it, I'm sure like at the circus tent that the old lady that they killed, Mother's Milk, had his tranquilizer then or something like that. They've
well,
obviously shorthanded some of it, but I figured it was one of two things. There was a short term that Huey did have powers. I don't know if there's any remaining of that. But if not, I didn't know if there was a trick to accessing the mind of someone accessing your mind. We do have that soldier boy through the woods thing, whatever that was, and that mind fuck. So I don't know if maybe he learned from that. I don't know. I accept that the premise is ambiguous, but I like the angle of him turning his own trick against him. The
yeah.
premise of that I like. The mechanics of it, I don't understand half the mechanics we've seen in this episode for crying out loud. So I was just more like, I liked what they did with it, but I have no clue to your point what the fuck happened.
Well, I think your Newman backstory is probably a better answer than anything that they gave us. So basically, Huey gets in Synapse's head long enough to distract him, lets Butcher have his powers back, and he chesticles through Synapse and they escape, basically.
Can I say
So,
one more thing about Huey and Newman?
oh, go ahead.
My wife, because no, they're married. All right. And we did boner her name last episode, but we just couldn't remember. But it was Victoria Newman and whatever.
And they're happily married now, so good for them. Okay, so Sage, after the lobotomy and her self work, helps with Kamiko. Basically, they blast her with uranium to the appropriate level right as Homelander is about to arrive. So Sage and Kamiko go and hide in the zinc box while Homelander's wandering around there. How did Homelander even find out where they are? Oh, because Synapse looked in Huey and Butcher's brain, found out about Erie, Pennsylvania, and that's how.
Yes.
So Homelander follows that trail, has it out with Frenchie. They both take a uranium shot, and Kimiko finds Frenchie radiated to hell. And this is, I confirm, a definite +1 for Craig's Deadpool right here. I don't know, they served it up very heartfelt, and they have been bringing Frenchie and Kimiko back together this season. I think Kimiko's reaction was the best selling of it, but it definitely was no red wedding for me.
Yeah, it's the best Frenchie we've seen in 2 seasons at least, which is diminishing returns, but I think it was a good episode for both of them. It was a good cherry on top of that relationship. They already set forth last season what does a relationship long term for two people like this even look like, to maybe soften that blow, the emotional blow of it. You see him saying we can settle down. We see him bringing
He's
up a dog. So
yeah,
that
he's
was
finally
like,
ready for kids.
that was definitely Chekhov's dog. But with all that said, yeah, the other point I was going to make is I do agree that some of the Sister Sage stuff was weird, or maybe not totally delivered well, or more to your point of what you were saying, what was, it could have been a very good linchpinned angle. And I would say it didn't serve her here, but it did serve them as to why and how Frenchie would do this to justify that he would do it. It sold
Yeah,
me on that premise. And I think this went as well as it could go. And another callback here when he talks about, I bet you've never danced. And we had that big dance sequence to the
right.
hospital, is I assume what that callback was. I thought this was done as well as the show could do it, but I do agree Kamiko was the high point. Kamiko went from such a negative last season to such a positive this season. There was somewhere between season 3 and 4, she fell off a really high cliff for me, but you could argue that it's very convenient how they allowed her to talk this season. I agree. It makes no fucking sense. But the fact that they did it is better than if they didn't do it. Do you got anything there?
I think you make good points. I tend to agree that speaking Kamiko is a lot more fun to watch.
And for season 1 or season 1.5, it was okay, but you can only watch a mute person with her own invented sign language, by the way. So they're not even honoring ASL people. It's her own invented thing.
They have
That can,
AS what the hell.
don't give Dan any more ASMR this week. He can't take it.
I'm done. Okay, so we've got one episode left. Any predictions or what do you want to see? What would send this show off the right way for you?
I think for me, it's just winning my death Deadpool at this
Well, you're
point.
ahead
Like,
2-1 now
a
with two other good
minimum.
potentials.
Yeah, I feel good. A week ago, I felt better about your board, and at this point, I definitely feel like I'm in the driver's seat. But with that said, if you remember previous seasons, like there was just like it started so strong and it ended so strong. I feel like the strong points of this season have been like the middle points of a season 1 or season 2. It's an 8 because we've had so many sixes,
Yeah.
but it's still strong. So it's like I'm the last two I've given eights to. I'm expecting it to be another 8. I don't expect to be fully satisfied, but I don't expect to get Nathan Fieldered either. I hope you're hungry for nothing. What are you hoping for or expecting? Has at least this season, like this season, certainly better than last season, I think. Any other thoughts?
I'd say that I want to see a lot of deaths, a huge death toll, because I'm the action lord and I'm going to need it to catch up. But I want some finality. I don't want, oh, but it could be open if we get enough fan service. Wait for the Dogknott show starring Don Knotts next year on Amazon or something like that. I want some finality. I think Ryan's going to come in big because he flew off page. I'm hoping for a Maeve appearance.
Yeah, there's no way you're not getting that. We got two fucking journal shots in 2 weeks, so that's
Um,
happening.
Hoping for a Stan Edgar showdown. I would like, and I would like to see the big battles. Like maybe somebody let Soldier Boy out of the can, and a lot of flying and blasting and blowing up and all that good stuff.
I know you're a fan of blasting. So here, I'll give you some predictions on the board. I'll write it for you. I already called one way, way early several seasons ago, but I think Ryan and the daughter of Victoria Newman wander off together. So that definitely happens. So they go off into the sunset.
Okay, him and
Um,
Zoe, that's a good call.
Maeve and Soldier Boy kill and Butcher, like that conglomerate, and Huey kill Homelander. Soldier Boy dies, and Soldier Boy and Butcher die. Homelander dies. So Brave Maeve is going to come back and lead the seven. Starlight decides to hang it up. Now you could switch either of those two.
Yeah,
Um,
those are both. Yeah, I
but
like the
one of the two of
probability.
them are restarting the seven. I lean more towards Maeve restarting the seven and Starlight and Huey going off into the sunset. Stan Edgar either passes the torch to Mother's Milk or they are going to join forces going forward or diametrically oppose each other going forward. One of those three things. And the return of back Ashley, which you were hoping for. Yeah, I think at least half of that will hit, but
Those are some good predictions. I think it will be more Stan Edgar against Sister Sage because he's the corporate machine. She
yeah,
wants to tear it all
well, and she
down.
could be the one that kills him, and then he's gonna take over for Stan Edgar, but want to do it in a different way or some bullshit like that.
I
I
think it may be a sacrificial Kamiko to take out Homelander.
That's also very probable and possible and fits into your death pool, but she blows up the same way Homelander does or Soldier Boy does. So does it take both of them? And they kill Butcher too, but he's holding them with his tentacles so they can do it. And Huey gets splattered, and Maeve somehow regains her powers from it all happening. There, some bullshit version of that is probably how it goes down. But I think that's a good
Does
call on Kamiko.
does Marie show up for any of that?
Who's Marie
But
again?
she's the Gen V girl that was supposed to be the
Oh,
new Homelander. They
I
brought
just
her back in this episode almost like a remember this one.
Yet it seems like overkill for some of the stuff we're talking about to set up, and some of the stuff we're talking about seems more relevant to this show. But it's weird that she's not involved.
Yeah, they set her up so much through the other show to not deliver on that almost feels like a wasted 2 seasons of television.
Yeah, I once again I think his hope is to still use her somewhere else. So is she on the new seven with Brave Maeve? Does Homelander start sucking on one of Jordan's titties and wake up with a dick in his mouth? Who knows? Who knows where this is
Jeez.
going?
What, are you drinking like some white monster there or something?
Pure water, baby.
Oh, geez. You just went Zephoria on me.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot that can happen though. I think it's got to deliver to a degree next episode.
I think we just made a good couple bingo cards if we could sort out all the squares.
Yeah,
Lots of good.
I would try to make another game if my death pool looked the way that it did. I would try to come up with a second game. But yeah, I think we'll hit a lot of the greatest hits. So yeah.
All right. Viewers and listeners, thanks for joining us. This has been the Prestige Ish Media Podcast coverage of The Boys, the penultimate episode, Season 5, Episode 7, The Frenchman, the Female, and the Man Called Mother's Milk. Join us next week as we conclude yet another show and continue to follow our Euphoria coverage over on the other side. Thanks for listening.
Also look for the boys and Dan's email.
I'm gonna have to delete that, do an internet scrub, change my search history, all of the above.
The joke is I normally send Dan something that says link and then the link, and this time it said the boys and then the link. So that is the joke. So he doesn't go to jail or
Yeah,
anything.
I sent him back an email that says I didn't ask for any of this.
Did you really?
No, but that
Oh,
would have
okay.
been good.
I would believe it. That's very on brand for you.